Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. This episode of Slam the Gavel is sponsored by CPS Protect Consulting Services. A child protective services case is one of the most frightening experiences for any parent. Don't face it alone. Face it with confidence with urgent assist. By CPS Protect, you can have access to former CPS investigators to make sure you preserve your rights and protect your family. If you're facing CPS involvement and aren't sure where to turn, their child welfare consultants can help you. Visit cpsprotect.com/subscribe and enter the coupon code Slam the Gavel for 60% off your first year of urgent assist. And this is available in all 50 states. I have another announcement. Bradley's mother, Narcus Golan, passed away in the fall of 2022. Bradley is autistic and needs structured routine therapies he receives for his autism 6 days a week. However, Italy just entrusted Bradley to the Italian social services. If he is ruled to go back, he will face the next 3 to 4 years in the Italian foster care system where he can't speak or understand the language. He will then be taken away from the only family he has ever known, and we have Judge Ann Donnelly to thank for this. Please call Governor Hochul at 518-474-8390. That's Governor Hochul at 518-474-8390 to please keep Bradley here safe in these United States. Hashtag keep Bradley safe. Also, go to the site pleasedoyourjob.com and sign the petition. We need 3,000 more signatures. That's pleasedoyourjob.com. And I have another announcement. All Texas parents, please file detailed complaints to complaints@house.texas.gov to the attention of Chairperson Andrew Murr, State Texas Representative. This is time-sensitive, urgent request. Also, CC yourselves in the email to keep a copy of this email for documentation purposes. I have a return guest back on. I'm so happy to have my good friend Tracy Armes back on. She was last on the podcast June 8th of 2023, season 4, episode 106, where she was on with Alicia Clark Walker. They were speaking out on the tragic case of Catherine Youssef Kasanoff and the norm of family court. We're going to talk about a lot of things today, and I welcome you, Tracy. We're going to have a ride.
Absolutely.
Huh? Now, what do you think of everything that has been going on? You were at the Yonkers Rally on July 17th, and it was on the news where you and a bunch of other people, I don't know if it was you and 12 people showed up holding signs.
Yeah, it varied. It was a fantastic turnout. It was people coming and going that could only, spare maybe an hour or 2 hours. Some of us were there the entire out till 1 o'clock, 10 till about 1, 2 o'clock. So it was a fantastic turnout. It was amazing. That's what happens when we have solidarity and the word is out. These judges should be scared.
Definitely. And I know you guys stood on the opposite side on the sidewalk of that courthouse. And I know you saw lawyers coming in and out. I don't know. Did anyone say anything to them or say you ought to be ashamed of yourselves or what?
We had a chance to serenade them. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
So we had megaphones, and yes, we were saying yes, they are doing the devil's work. I was saying it, but yeah, along with a few other people, and yeah, absolutely, they are. We saw a few parents guarding items. They looked like a creditor. 90 something years old. I mean, feeble looking. So you're telling me someone like this is making vital decision makings in children's and parents' lives. So yes, it's pretty unbelievable when you see these people behind that should be retired physically and mentally that are still have a huge impact on innocent children. So yes, judges were taking pictures of us from the courthouse. Good. I hope they all got our great good side or bad side.
Yeah. Well, I thought you looked great. I loved your sign.
I have many signs. Yes. Yes, and I think signs are imperative because it's true. That arts and crafts class and Martha Stewart reruns, it really paid off.
Martha Stewart.
Absolutely. No, I had the money, and it's true. It's a racketeering scheme that is going on in these courts, And these judges, the longer they prolong your case, my case, yeah, the more money it is. It's a vicious Ponzi scheme. Guardian items, the children's attorney, as some people know them as, everybody gets a piece of this pie the longer someone's pain is. That's what it comes down to.
Oh, yes. Stress, anxiety. It's just terrible. And it doesn't need to be this way.
No. But it's a no-brainer that you prolong someone's misery, a child's misery, or an innocent parent, then you have a paycheck for the rest of the 9-12 months.
I find it also concerning that when evidence is submitted, and I've seen this in several cases, and I know this goes on all the time because it happened in my case as well. You will submit evidence, the judge just doesn't want to read it. You could provide and pay for an expert witness to testify on what the outcome of child psychological abuse is, and the judge disregards it.
Yeah, absolutely. And same thing. I have fallen victim to, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on submitting exhibit A, B, C of, drug testing and domestic violence or child abuse. And not even your legal aid won't even look at it, or much less your judge, that you're like, Your Honor, the evidence is in front of you. And it's optional if they want to look through your exhibits and the thing. And this happens all the time. We are not having a voice.
And it's sad to say that with Catherine's passing, hashtag I am Catherine is now the thing to go to. However, we've got to keep talking about her because we cannot forget her memory and what she went through with the legal abuse and the parental alienation.
Absolutely.
And I know you had sent me a tape that was, I believe this was on TikTok. Do you want me to play it now, or do you want me to wait?
Yes, no, I think you should let your viewers know, and especially the fathers group that are so adamant about the law is only in favor of the mothers and women. Is by far, as you've said many times, the tables have turned. Absolutely. So, gentlemen, here's a great, case in point that this judge, and we all commend him, this one judge, and I'm trying to find out what court this was in and state, because I'd like to do more research on this judge. But yes, this is 1 in a million judge that actually called out the mother for this word that we're going to get into, I think, later on, parental alienation. So yes, please play it.
Okay, here we go.
Ms. Farr has thrown in the way over the years, trying to interfere with Mr. Cook having a reasonable parental relationship with his children. And frankly, what I'm seeing is direct parental alienation by Ms. Farr. She is instilling fear in her children. She is telling them things that they should never need to hear. She is instilling fear in them. And she's done damage as a result of that. Kids don't need to hear one parent trashing the other. And Mr. Cook, you're guilty of that. You're guilty of trashing their mother to them. She's guilty of trashing you to them. All it does is create harm. And it's been successful. Isabel has been as alienated as I've seen a child become. And Chloe's rapidly on the way to being that herself. It's just plainly wrong. So how do we fix it at this point? Clearly, these girls have been alienated against Mr. Cook. They believe that he's a danger to them, but they don't believe that based on truth. They believe that based upon all of the fear that their mother has instilled in them. I don't doubt that Mr. Cook loses his cool on occasion and raises his voice, but he's not a danger to either one of these children. He never has been. He never will be. The danger is what mom is doing. Ma'am, if you unmute your phone, again, I am going to kick you out of this hearing. Do not do it. Is that clear? So how do we get off this point and get to some semblance of a reasonable parenting time schedule and a reasonable relationship for Mr. Cook with his children? What I want to do, the referral to the healing place to Dr. Shannon Louder, absolutely, I wanted it followed up on. I want counseling set up for both of the girls through Dr. Louder's office. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to schedule, and Mr. Cook, you're not going to like this, but give it time. There's a goal in mind. I am going to order that a healing place supervise a couple of visits. I want them to see what I believe to be the case, that these girls have no reason to fear you other than what mom has put into their heads. And she's been hard at work doing that. Every chance she gets, she poisons these girls towards you, Mr. Cook, every time. So the first step we're going to do, I want there to be 2 supervised visits with each daughter separately. I do not want them together. They need to be separately. After those 2 visits, I want the parenting time supervisor at a healing place to give the court a report as to how those visits went. I also want the girls immediately enrolled in counseling through whoever it is Dr. Louder assigns from the healing place so that they can start that process. I want the person who's doing the therapy to involve both parents at a time and under such circumstances as the therapist sees fit. I anticipate going to a far more regular parenting time schedule. Part of the problem here is the extent to which these girls have been withheld from Mr. Cook. And while they're being withheld, they're being fed lies by their mother, exaggerations, just over the top, outright parental alienation. So I'm going to get busy to write this order. I'm going to warn you, Ms. Farr, each time the child doesn't go to a visit is going to cost you a day in jail. And I'm going to stand behind that. And make sure your girls know if they're telling you, no, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. Honey, if you don't go, mama's going to have to go to jail. You make sure they know that, because it's going to happen. All right. That concludes our hearing. Frankly, what I'm seeing,
I think that was it.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow. He said it all. I
Good
wish he was my judge. Why couldn't he have been my judge?
Oh my gosh, he is a 1 in a million. How often do you hear a judge actually have a backbone and morals? I mean, he went above and beyond to not be swayed, to not be pressured into doing a false ruling, or he is yes, acknowledging both parties are guilty, but especially the mother. Mm-hmm. The alienation, not once but 3 times. This is by an educated person, and obviously someone that it cannot be swayed, and then to give the mother consequences, and that is very stern. And how often have you ever heard them being contempt is another joke. You can be in contempt for an entire year, as I've had my ex in contempt of having him drug tested. I show up for my drug test, but you would think, he shows up, and absolutely 29 days later, he'll show up absolutely in contempt. Contempt of arrears. Nothing happens to him. Contempt of therapeutic therapy, which I've been requesting for an entire year last year. That's okay. But 2 days later, after an entire year, he's not in contempt. So but now this judge has actually followed through and has issued out consequences, which is, I think, beyond imperative. And I wish everybody would use this guy as a role model. I think we need to find who the guy is. Absolutely.
Oh, and I want to give credit to @BenWatchesJustice, because apparently he's the one that put that up there or recorded this. But yeah, this has to be heard. Judges, they already know what's going on. This judge, he looks kind of older, which is fine, but he knew what was going on. He knew what the games were. I wish my judge, of course, I think he was being paid off, whatever.
Yeah. And that's the thing, they're paid off. There's favors in my case, so with my Allen #2, Kasanoff, absolutely. Yeah. And there's it's not because he's a brilliant lawyer or he had the money, by no means. He's kind of like the bottom of the barrel of lawyers. So it's definitely favoritism. It's a stereotypical stereotyping that, you're Caucasian, 6'2", and you pass the bar, then that makes you part of the boys club, period. Mm-hmm. So there's huge indifferences that are going on. And so, yeah, but yeah, that's the saddest part. These judges, for everybody that's just tuning in, for them to think like your judge doesn't know what's going on, or my judge just needs to be educated in parental alienation, or whatever you call it. The judge knows, and as a parent, you have kids, you know who the problem child is, and you know who the child that is not a problematic child. So the same thing when you go into court, you could have a million motions filed. It doesn't make you the problem. I think that it needs to, like I said, when the judges need to be obligated, and it should be mandatory to view your evidence. Just like before you go into surgery, if we were surgeons, we have to analyze what the problem is. You're just not going to go into surgery and start cutting away. You have to know the history. Mm-hmm. Same thing.
And, some people will say, well, we don't like the word parental alienation. It doesn't, I don't know, maybe fit their narrative, but it's what it is. Alienation has been used even in the national news, even international news. For instance, when Biden came into office, they said in the news, he alienated Canada from the United States by cutting off the pipeline. And I saw alienated, I saw the word. So it is an actual term where you are cutting off contact. So why it would make sense to say parental alienation, because the parent is cutting off contact.
Correct. True. It's not the child then it'd be child alienation that the child is doing. But you look it up in Wikipedia, Encyclopedia Britannica, and that's we're talking about 1960s, 70s. Alienation has been created even in the 1800s. That word alienation. So you throw in, it's not created by this Gardner. Absolutely, maybe the syndrome, but we've been. You can't categorize the parental alienation any other way. Description. If you tell somebody, we've been through this, and we've asked many experts on this subject matter. You can't say, what do you call custodial interference? Well, I automatically think someone that works as a janitor or in a school or custodial. Speak to your custodial. Toxic parental behavior. I think of biohazard. So try politically correct. There is no ins and outs. You got to call it. And I'd love for you to ask your viewers of what, if they have a better term for us to use besides parental alienation, and you hear the experts, doctors, psychologists, presidents, writers, then, who else, better is well-versed in that name?
I know that other psychologists have called it child psychological abuse, which is in the DSM-5, V995.51. And it is child psychological abuse.
Absolutely.
But it's being caused by a parent or a grandparent or another relative or a flying monkey.
Absolutely. You're feeding into a child's psyche. which is against, and then that's when you have problems like my child. I've been alienated, and regardless, I'm using that word. I've been kept from my child, not my child kept from me. My child has wanted to see me, but my child, due to his father and him abusing his sibling, absolutely. So now my child is dealing with psychological issues because this trauma that he has to pressure of, it's a trauma bond, or maybe he feels that the same thing that happened to his brother being assaulted by his father is the same thing going to happen to him. So it is caused by his father, the parent.
Yeah, it's a shame because it plays with their mind for years and years. And you know, sometimes, you know, people say, well, wait till they're 18 and they'll come back. There's actually documentation where it could take them 40 years to wake up and figure out what happened, if they do it all.
Or it could be irreversible for forever. And
Yes.
even if they are 70, and I've spoken to parents that have been, they have alienated, they have chosen not to speak to their parent because the other parent, and it's too late. And that's something that the damage is done. Once that parent is gone, there is no apology. You can't say I was pressured by my parent because not to speak to you anymore, have any relationship, because that parent is now gone. So that is a pain a child will have to live with till they're 70, 80, whatever. It's irreversible. Absolutely.
It is an irreversible pain. You know, the thing is, if you try to reach out, there's multiple people that they're like gatekeepers. Well, you know, I can't contact them for you because, you know, I haven't talked to this other person for 4 years. You know, someone to help you get in contact with this kid. And
it's sad.
Yeah, and they've also been, a lot of people have to understand that some of these kids have been bought off. For instance, one of mine was bought off. I don't know what the deal is, and all I know is that I have not spoken to the oldest since 2014, essentially.
Yeah.
In a nutshell. So I really don't know where this person's living, how they're being treated by whoever they're living with. You know, you know, I don't know what to say. They're taken away from you at a time when they need you the most.
Absolutely. It's the vital, as a mother or as a father, no matter what bond you have, parents, children always need their parents. Daughters will always need their mother and their father, and vice versa. We nurture these children for them to kind of not for any judge to think that, like I said, even Charlie Manson had access to his children. My God, you know, what is wrong with society?
Yeah.
So for a judge to say that, you know what, I'm in, even if you had a false allegation, like me, I had a false allegation and I fought tooth and nail, and I was going to be damned if I was going to go down with a false accusation, not once, but twice. But the second one prompted by their father, it was horrific. And like I said, it was, it was really bad. So to have a child to live with something, thinking, and a judge just going by hearsay, and that's what it is, instead of looking at the evidence, seeing that someone was acquitted, a judge actually picks apart every false allegation. And there are judges that will say, listen, this is completely bogus and unjust, and it doesn't even make sense why I would have a parent would have their children in therapeutic therapy, speaking to another adult in their personal time, and then you are the quote quote abuser or has done something wrong. And that's the thing. Judges need to be attuned. Well, they are attuned, but they are completely purposely ignoring it. And like I said, it's more fun. My judge, Alfred Graf, of course, he's like, why don't we put you in a parenting class sponsored by the courts?
Isn't that convenient?
More money into the system, right? It's just that vicious cycle. Everybody pays everybody. Somebody has to pay the guardian litem. Oh, you want to take I'm insisting to take a parental class. I'm not mom of the year by no means, but I was a stellar mother, and everybody that knows me can attest for that. Absolutely. So to take a court-ordered parental class, no, you know what? I'm not giving a dollar more, even a penny more to this horrible racketeering.
Right. That is knowing and willingly, I want to say, aiding and abetting child psychological abuse.
It is.
And these judges who are siding for the parent that is calling out these false accusations, they know what's going on. You know, this is more of a money game, because I too had 2 false accusations. They were back to back. I had to fight off with the last one, cost me my career. But anyway, who cares, right? As long as they win.
We're still, listen, we are still going, but there has to be, you know what? I believe in karma, and I have no problem. And like I said, our voices will be heard, Marianne, and we will not tolerate this. It almost cost me my career on a false allegation. And I was going to say, I'll be damned that I would ever go down. And you get into a dark place, as we all have, that you just feel defeated and beaten down by everything, and loss of, you had so much hopes in our judicial system, and a judge to see the right and wrongs and the fabrications, and wanting the children's impact, and they're not able to speak on their own right, but yet my child is able to speak that he doesn't want to go to therapy, or doesn't want to go to school, for instance. So a 10-year-old is governing a judicial official, basically. No, I think that is why I urge anyone not to give up, and we all lose our power. But people like you and I, yeah, we will not, enough of the injustice, and we are speaking out. And I praise you and thank you for your show, and shedding light for people that have not gone through this. But we will not let this go. You cannot continually victimize, and the judges are allowing this for you to lose a career, me to almost lose my career. Absolutely not. This will not, hell have no fury on a woman's score or man's score. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But you cannot get away with this, period. Right.
Now, you know, what I thought was odd in my case when I was under the second indication of emotional child abuse. Okay, so in case people don't know, if you are under indication of anything, emotional, physical, or sexual, you can't be around kids, right? You can't work around kids, whatever.
Yeah.
So the judge, he ordered during this time that I have every other weekend, overnights, unsupervised. Unsupervised. And the opposing side started screaming in the pews that this was, I mean, it was like an uproar. And my attorney said, this is actually a miracle. He said he had never seen anything like this before, because you're under an indication, and he's giving you those kids every other weekend. Now that doesn't make sense though, does it?
Yeah.
So he must have seen through the BS of the second indication.
Absolutely. And they should. And see, there was never an order of protection issued out. CPS never saw that I was a detriment to my children, or endangering my children. So that was never. The father, which happens to be a lawyer, drafted an order of protection on the children. And this guy is the one that was found guilty of child abuse as a lawyer for the 5th time, throwing his kid across a room. And then, and then he's the one that drafted an order of protection, not anyone else, not a judge, not CPS, the father, of having the legal savvy to just continuously abuse me now, but through the legal system and financially. So it's a huge, but yet the roles are reversed, and this is what happens. We are forced to give our children away to the real abuser, like I said. So judges and we see this all the time, that children are like, I don't want to go. I have videos, I'm sure you do too, of I don't want to go to my father, and I like that video. Please, kids, you're going to get me in trouble. I will be in trouble. You have to go to your father. I know what just happened. I know he got arrested for throwing your brother across the room, but you have to go because you don't want to get mommy in trouble. And this is the thing. And then either we have a 50-50 shot of wondering if our kid is going to come back alive in one piece, or it's not a suicide, just to spite. Absolutely. And it's a control issue.
Definitely. I know of a case where a judge ordered that the daughter have psychological counseling. However, the father didn't think that was needed. So that child committed suicide in time. And
Yeah.
where's the judge's accountability on all of this happening to this family?
And that's the thing, you know, if we were doctors, once again, because that's a prime example, and they have people's lives in their hands. If we were surgeons, imagine if we did something that we weren't supposed to, took out whatever, something, that a part that we shouldn't have, and now the person died. There's accountability for doctors. You get your license taken away, you get med mal, and you will never work as a physician.
Mhm.
Judges, same thing, same capacity. They are in charge of all these lives: the abuser, the victims, the children, and you rule in favor of the bad parent. Children either in a beaten, essayed,
Mhm.
and or they whatever, and there's no accountability. That's the thing. Or they don't come back alive, and there's no repercussions for these judges.
Right. And these laws that are trying to be passed or have been passed, Caden's law, I'm trying to think of the other one.
Is it Paquette?
Or there's another one though of a little boy. Not that one, but there's he's a cute little blonde boy. But anyway, you can write as many bills as you want, but you know, the custodial interference laws have been on the books for well over 40 years. And I've done podcasts with Claudia Ovias and Rael LaPenta on this as well. But law enforcement doesn't know how to handle these laws. They have not been trained on this, which means, for instance, my middle one did not want to go back. He outweighed me by, I don't know, a good maybe 60 pounds. Okay. And he was taller than me. So I called the state police. I said, what do? I've got to get him back to his father. The state trooper laughed at me and said, well, why don't you just pick him up and put him in the car? And it's like,
Yeah.
okay. And that's the thing, is that the laws have been, in fact, Texas just passed a bill on custodial interference, and I was a non-custodial parent, so I had to return the kid.
Yeah.
And then I had to sit around and worry about if he would do something to himself.
Yeah. And that is the worst pain that only the parents have to endure, because the judge goes to sleep and he sleeps a very, goes to his house and is wondering if, who cares if he had to force a child to go to an abusive parent. Absolutely. He's still going to go to sleep at night perfectly fine, worried about, what summer house they're going to purchase, or the Hamptons house, or whatever, his next vacation or his next Mercedes. And that's the way it is. There is zero accountability. And I think police, the problem is they don't know their jurisdiction. You can't, besides having paperwork on the spot, a police officer cannot just remove a child and say, like, get in the car, we're taking you to the paper, because there are the fine lines of jurisdiction and stuff. And yeah, that's the gray area that the police fall into, I believe.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of them, for the most part, don't know how to handle this. They'll say, oh, it's a civil matter, just go back and handle it in family court. In fact, when I'd gone to the state police to report, the lights are on, no one's home, I'm supposed to have to see my kids for 4 hours. Well, just call your lawyer and
Exactly.
deal with it through family court.
Exactly. Like, they don't have enough problems. And this is the reality, that they cannot. What are they going to say unless they see and view how many people have access to all their paperwork on the spot? Like, this is my custodial weekend. And I think that's part of the problem too. But bottom line is, there needs to be consequences. This judge that commend him from that audio, yeah, there should be repercussions. You are withholding a child from a parent or the child does not want to go to therapy, there are consequences. It's called jail time. Just like you don't want to, you got to go to school as a kid, and if
Right.
you're taking care of children, that is part of your responsibility, is to make sure that they go to school, period, or face incarceration. Like we were all threatened, and our parents did the same thing. You got to go to school. It's against the law not to go to school.
Right.
Here in New York, that, you know, my children have had residential residency with my ex-abuser and their abuser for 2 years now. And this is done in spite. New York is like, you know what? Yeah, this person took on my children and had no interest before, but just to be spiteful, what are their pain other than to take your children away from their mother that is taken care of and made sure for the last 8 years, these children have had everything. We lived in an apartment. I worked nonstop and provided for them alone because he was a complete deadbeat. And like I said, the bar does not see that. It's a family matter. It's not an ethical or judicial matter. This is part of the character and ethics. It should be an ethical committee issue, but no. But yeah, so now my child has missed more than 90% of the school year. And do you think the father, an attorney, would be held accountable of breaking the law? And this guy's 6'2", 280 pounds. And you're telling me a 10-year-old governs you? So no, the laws are different for some people, like Catherine. So
most definitely, I totally agree with that. No child should be running the show or advising a judge to keep the other siblings away from the mother.
Exactly.
Things like that happen. People don't realize when they walk into family court, and it's always the same story I hear from people, well, I thought it was going to be fair because we're walking into a courtroom. This is supposed to be fair. And, it's very scary. I just would like to see family court abolished, take it down to civil court you can have a 6-person jury. I said 6-man jury, and I was correct. It's 6-person jury.
Person. Yes. Nowadays, yes. Politically correct. We don't know. He, she, them.
Right. And I think that would help, especially when there's false accusations. I mean, surely a jury can put this together, that this is only being done to keep the kids away from the other parent and grandparents. And, there's a lot of people suffering in this: parents, grandparents, nieces, cousins.
Absolutely. And I've heard different perspective, but I'm in agreement with you. People barely show up for jury duty anyway, but I'm fearful of, same thing, breaking the law if I don't show up to jury duty. I think there's more accountability. It's not that extensive, long legal abuse that everybody has to endure, and emotional abuse that the children have to go through legally and have to be continued interviewed by CPS or ACS, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, you have a jury, then it'll squash it. And I hear jurors can be bought. Well, good luck. If you can buy a 6-man jury or person jury, then listen, maybe you work for the mom that we don't know about and you can pay off 6 people, but there's more accountability. Judges it's not so much power for the judges. Right now, it's the Wild West. These guys, what happens in their chambers, and that's the other thing, they are so afraid of people recording, and people are getting arrested once they step in and they find the recording device. People are getting arrested for recording their own hearing. It's an abuse of power. If you're not doing something wrong, Marianne, and you and I know that, why would you be so fearful of and putting someone in jail for recording something that's supposed to be justful? And you do. Absolutely not. So that should be a red flag already, what's going on behind these closed doors.
Right. And that's why we need cameras in the courtroom. When I interviewed James Kelly, we had a great interview, and he did great. And he's working on that. And we need the cameras because these judges, their behaviors are sometimes bizarre. Yeah.
And I think we've spoken about it before. They need psych evals. I have to take a psych eval every year. I have to take random drug testings. It is, like I said, for these judges to not have, and so should these lawyers, I'm sorry, a lot of them are playing with full deck, and lawyers are a dime a dozen. So good luck of finding. It's not like they're special in this expertise. No, a lot of them are not playing with the full deck. And I think if you have people's hands, they're supposed to go every year, I think, to do pro bono, and they're obligated to do it. Not a lot of them. There's no one holding them to that, a pro bono. And same thing, you should be obligated to take a psych evaluation, because you have people's lives, especially the children's attorney. These people are the most disgraceful, bottom of the barrel people.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they are the scum of the earth, the guardian items. You tell me about a few that have actually cared and fought for these kids and saw through the persuasion of the bad parent and trying to befriend them. You find me one guardian item that has really fought for these kids. Very few and far.
Right.
But these guys absolutely need psychological evaluations. But to be having people's lives in your hands, and there's no oversight, there's a huge problem, people. Everybody needs to wake up. And yeah, I want to see a family court abolished. There needs jurors, absolutely. CPS needs to be abolished as well. They can change their name a million times, but there has to be, because there are children that are actually being chained to a bed post and held in cages. Absolutely. And those are the kids we need a certain party and office to oversee that. And it's not called CPS. They can rename it and rebrand it as much as they want, but same thing. They are part of the problem, not the solution.
Definitely. And I like what Brian Vukadinovich said on my podcast about 2 weeks ago, that the judges should also get lie detector tests, because there's just too many of them being bought out, including my own judge that I had, who's now deceased, and the one that followed him was also, there was a payoff in a certain way that the opposing attorney kicked in money for his daughter's judge campaign.
See, it's that favors.
Yeah.
It's favors and typical politics. And no, absolutely. I mean, it should be a no-brainer. You have to have a physical every year for a certain job. You have to have a psych eval. You have to have random drug testing. It should be the same thing. Same guidelines of, you know what, you need a psych evaluation, a lie detector test. Have you ever committed fraud? Well, what's considered fraud? Have you accepted a favor or bribe, financial gain? There should be standard questions, and it should be random, because anybody can train to beat the lie detector test, and it's proven. So, especially a pathological liar, when you believe your own lie. So no, there has to be random, and it has to be set up by a separate entity that cannot be bought or swayed, just like the cameras. We put cameras in courts, and I've spoken to James Kelly as well. They are going to accidentally lose power, or the tape is going to be lost, or the audio, if we put them in cameras. But yeah, if it's a separate entity, you cannot be bought. There is no accidents that are going to happen.
See, and they also should be tamper proof, because I know some courts have the cameras in there, but a parent had told me that their case was videotaped or on camera, but the next case that went in, they turned off the cameras.
This is the thing. Exactly. You need a separate department, and it not even have any way that it can be tampered with, period. And that's, sorry, you cannot, we don't have access to Big Brother in DC and the FBI files and stuff. So same scrutiny that these guys need to be under. They cannot be trusted, period.
No, not at all. And
these are the guys that whatever they swear and hold up their right hand and swear to tell the truth when they're swearing into the bar. No, maybe they have their little pinky fingers and their other hand crossed, but no, they completely do opposite of justice. They're the most corrupt officials as we've all, and anybody that thinks we are coming from left field or we're extremists, and no, we are giving you the reality of the hard lessons we've had to learn and the so much the empty promises of the judicial system that we were led to believe as a child, that there's justice. You do something bad or you lie, you get in trouble. No, not in family court.
Mhm.
They lie, they steal, they do, they have unrulings, they have conversations behind your back ahead of time. So no, it is complete circus right now. It's in shambles.
Oh, right, right. And it's a system, it's a fine oiled machinery, and it's going at such a speed and destroying parents and their children. I think parents have to understand that, okay, so if your marriage doesn't work out, doesn't mean you have to run into a courtroom for divorce. You can actually write up your own settlement, which is what we had done. And we were okay with that until a third party inserted herself in the relationship years later. And then family court started, and I couldn't get out of it because you get sucked into it by a personality disorder.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, you hope, and bottom line, people, quit being so spiteful. It didn't work out, but to use the children's as pawns is beyond disgraceful. Look at the bottom line. You're doing parents being so spiteful and turning children against them, the other parent, or you're doing irreversible damage. And the
Right.
bottom line, and it saves you the time from taking off work, of being the spiteful parent and taking the other parent to court. Just get it done and try to be civilized. That's the bottom line. I have to be civilized, and it's taken this has been since 2014. I was physically abused by this person, and it was like for an entire month of just being thrown across a room, and my body was in so much physical pain. And that is just the beginning of the mental, post-traumatic, and thinking this guy's going to strangle me in my sleep. And I still worry about being hurt. So, but I still have to not be the bigger person, but we all have to get over it. And it's taken a lot of time to have to say, listen, whatever's happened. Let's do this, because look what the damage we are doing to our children, not me. Like I said, as much as I want to protect my children, I still had to force them to see their abuser and my abuser, issued by the court. They have done that court. There's blood on the court's hands by these judges, because imagine you forcing a child to see that whether they were SA'd by their parent or a family member, or they were beaten by the family member, and you are forcing these young innocent people that have no worldly experiences, and this is what someone that's supposed to stand up for their rights are forcing them to go to an abusive party. It's despicable. And yeah, they're doing more harm. But bottom line, if you can deal with it, put your differences aside, you don't have to see their face and have powwows with them, but the other parent, but do it for the kids. I mean, this is years and years and generations of, they will pass on this learned behavior and thinking what's right and wrong, and being traumatized by the judicial system, them knowing that it led them and failed them to their children, and so on and so forth, that thinking this is right to go back to an abuser.
Definitely. And there are parents that are not going into court. We're not hearing from them. I was able to interview Jim and Julie about 2 years ago in the summer, and they discussed their co-parenting relationships with their exes and how they work things out. And I was even at their daughter's graduation party, and I saw the stepfather playing horseshoes with her father. So it's like, I'm going, whoa, this is mind blowing. I mean, if they can do it, why can't this jerk do? Oh, sorry. Why can't he do it? But the thing is, see, this is just it. These third parties start chirping in people's ears saying, well, you should be having to pay that child support. And believe me, I would like to see that gone as well. Because also parents are being used as pawns in this child support racket. Mothers and fathers are getting hauled off to jail, and you don't know what can happen in there. I mean, there was a case where a guy got hauled off for being in the arrears, and he died in there. He basically died in there. And he was only in there, I think, a couple days. This was a big case, but the thing is, really $700, you're putting someone in the prison for $700 and it costs them their life. Was that really worth it at taxpayer expense?
Oh, exactly. Or you could be, speaking of arrears, this is $40,211, arrears of just this one. So you can be an attorney and be arrears, never go to jail, never get your driver's license taken away. Still, and I have stuff from the New York State of him being 75,000 arrears. But that's why it's a double standard, which is infuriating. It needs to stop. There needs to be accountability for favoritisms of whether you're a crooked cop or you have a friend that's a judge. There's no oversight. So this is really disturbing and very sad that someone's incarcerated for that amount, a token amount compared to thousands, 40,000, 75, 72,000. It's a complete, so I have no problem showing everybody my evidence and black and white. This is the reality, people, of what we have to go through, of what the true injustice system. It's not justice for all, it's justice for some, Marianne. And
And some people say, well, only if you're rich, you have a more chance of winning. That's not even true at all either. It's I don't know if it's a favoritism thing, or if you are rich, they think they can get more money out of you, then they turn you into the non-custodial parent. I know a dad that's happening to. I've had him on my podcast, Jim Shock. He's literally being, I would have to say, trafficked. I was trafficked through this court system based on getting child support out of someone.
And that's the thing. They want, the states get billions of dollars for your child support going through the agency of them taking it out. So that's just number one. If you can settle it, and I know many parents and many men and some women that settle it and say, listen, I'll give him $6,000 a month or her $6,000 a month, and we don't need to go through child support agency. Absolutely, because it's purposely done. That's why they're like, do you want to go have it? They're insistent on that. Mm-hmm. It's a money making. It's a bottom line. Everybody's profiting, especially at child support agencies. If you can work it out on the side, whether it's in part of your divorce or part of anything by a mediator, absolutely. So this is what I owe Jane Doe every month that takes care of my children's clothes, food on the table, and shelter. That's it. It's not to buy someone a purse or buy someone a sports car. In addition, it goes both ways. Mm-hmm. But people need to realize it. To have your lawyer go through child support, the funds. Absolutely not. They are part of the problem, and it's encouraged. And but like I said, it works both ways. Why they didn't go after $75,000, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a mystery, and it needs to be solved. I like what Brian Vukadinovich said on the last podcast. He actually offered solutions, and he was just amazing because it was just so good to hear someone say, okay, well, we got the solution. And I can tell you, his podcast, let me see here.
It was great. I loved it.
Oh yeah. He was on so recently. I can tell you which one it is. It was July 1st. He was on, so not that long ago. And if people would take his advice, I think we'd all be in a lot better shape.
Oh my gosh, it was brilliant interview. I mean, he had solutions for everything. You gave him a suggestion, bam, Brian had it. Absolutely. If Brian could write the map for every book for the court system, we'd be in a better position. Our parents, children, the corruption wouldn't continue to go on. Yeah. It was and that's what we need, solutions. We got to stop complaining. And that's the thing. I heard some people, some backlash of I'm a little harsh on getting people to go to rallies. Like I said, and some people were like, well, we all are going through our own pain at the same time. Absolutely. I have my good days, I have my bad days, and I can't even get out of bed. I'm so beat up by and feel that how much more energy or I can give into this fight of like I said, I still have an ongoing issue. And it'll never end. As long as my ex is an attorney and abusing his legal status, it'll still go on. And my children are over 18, 19, it'll still continue. But we cannot sit on a couch complaining. And especially if you don't have solidarity. If you don't live in the same state, then you have no leg to stand on. Don't complain. But I'm just trying to tell people we can all complain about the problem, but people like Brian are giving solutions. People like you and I are lending our voices of giving solutions, and we're telling people what the problem is and what the solution is listening to our voices, getting our voices heard, writing our legislators, going up to the higher ups, having that solidarity, because no one's going to care if you or I, Marianne, are in front of a courthouse on a Monday with 2 signs and with megaphone. They're going to think like we're jobless, homeless, and have nothing to do. I'm taking off work. You're taking off time. We have a million things we could be doing, but you have people like Black Lives Matter, big groups like that join in forces and reuniting everybody's cause.
Mhm.
It's a horse of a different color. We will make waves and strides. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there has to be solidarities with mothers and fathers. This is not just happening to fathers, not just happening to mothers. You know, they're going after everybody because this is about the money.
Exactly. It's fair game. It is fair game. So when I had people contact me a few times, like I had a father's group, is this only a mother's group? Because I'm not going to show up, and vice versa. I will not tolerate that. And you need to focus mothers groups and fathers groups and whatever. I don't care. Like I said, if you're a Martian, just show up and think about the bottom line is the common denominator is family court and these judges that have the authority that should not have the authority to ruin and destroy innocent people's lives, period. That's
Exactly.
the common denominator, people.
Most definitely. And I want to have you back on my podcast. I would love to have you come back on.
Absolutely. We just scratched the surface.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So, you know, if people want to reach you, how do you want to be reached?
You have my contact information, and absolutely go through you. And I try to reunite everybody in different states and other parents, Texas and Kansas and Ohio and stuff like that. So I'm all about kind of empowering each other, and that's what we need to do. We need to find each other in different states, reunite, and join forces. There's a lot of mothers and fathers in Florida that have a huge issue. California has a big issue. Texas, New York is #1 perpetrators in abuse of legal status and jurisdiction. So yeah, go through you. And like I said, if anyone needs help, and I'm sure you'll find your resources too, and contact Marianne and she'll reunite you with other parents in your state.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. Don't jump off, though. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms that in turn perpetuate parental alienation. I am your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again here with Tracy Armes in the future and other exciting guests. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Thanks, Marianne, for having me again.